Been a graffiti writer for 38 years, teach hip hop activism classes and the history of hip hop and develop curriculum for that. Every element of hip hop existed for thousands of years before it amalgamated in the inner city. When young people took on these arts, they weren't allowed to contribute to the world around them, and they weren't being nurtured in those inner city marginalized communities. Everyone was actually doing graffiti in the 50s and 60s, but it took particular individuals like Cornbread or Ataki 183 to be like, wait a minute, I can actually do kind of a repeated stamp. I can keep writing this, and it becomes a tangible opportunity to put your name up in a place where no one is really recognizing you. And then the other contributor to this evolution is the gang culture of the 60s and 70s, the brown gangs that were created in response in particular to the Polish, Italian, and the European descendant gangs that were dominating the high schools at that time. When brown migration was happening into urban areas, there was a kind of a new problem with these N-words showing up. As communities were decimated and raised by urban planning, communities began to be more isolated economically, and children were completely marginalized in those spaces. And the only thing that they could create was gang culture for survival and communality, even though it was a destructive culture. Everyone had a representative in their gang that wrote that name, or several representatives who wrote the name. As the arts of hip hop began to develop and gang culture began to change with gang truces and with young people really empowering themselves with political action, there's a transmutation into, like, I'm not representing my gang, I'm representing my crew. So those gangs suddenly become localized crews under this mantle of hip hop as hip hop is evolving. And then we receive